Welcome to Part the System, and today I'm with Alex Burrows. How are you going, Alex?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, David. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to speak with you. So a little bit about you. Alex is the founder and exec chair of ActiveXchange, who over the last 10 years has set up and led teams across the UK and Europe, Australasia and North America, focused on making data simple to use for facilities, sports and government. Ultimately aimed at shaping a more active and healthy communities. Combined, this has meant unlocking the potential of data on over 30 million people and 1 billion visits to facilities, putting key intelligence behind planning, funding, and operational decisions in order to shape a more active and healthy communities. Prior to the data technology, Alex was planning consultant, frustrated at the lack of relevant and available information around which big decisions were being taken. So I think the analogy, Alex, if you want something doing, do it yourself applies here. And yeah, really looking forward to having a chat with you today. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, and at times I'm still that frustrated planning data person, but we're doing our best to get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll dig into a little bit of that today. But I think just firstly, obviously, you're coming from England today. And yeah, what a time to be in the UK. You've got the cost of living crisis, energy crisis, and obviously the Queen's just passed away as well. So yeah, how's it going over there?
Yeah, it's been strange. And actually, the Queen passing was I've just come back from a week's break in Italy, and it kind of happened just at the end part of that. And it's been really strange. I think there's obviously a sadness. I think, through our lifetime and through our parents' lifetime, the Queen's been that kind of central reference point. But I think what it does show is how it almost kind of pulls communities together as well, when things like this happen. The cost of living, who knows where that ends up? And don't get me going on the politics side of things, because it's a bit of a mess at the moment in the UK, at least kind of, yeah, centrally. So yeah, we'll see what the next few months bring. Yeah, but I think we're still generally optimistic. I think just the relief of getting out of COVID and finding momentum again, and getting out, meeting people, seeing that there's still passion for the types of things we're doing, and obviously we're passionate about a lot of things our partners are doing as well. So yeah, just I think that's put a new perspective on things as well, coming off the back of the last 2 years, which have been really difficult in all parts of the world.
Yeah, it just seems more challenges keep coming up, don't they? And I didn't even throw in there a new Prime Minister. Forgot about that one.
Yeah.
So we'll yeah, love to learn a little bit more about you, Alex. And yeah, so firstly, what do you do to look after your well-being?
It's a mix of things. So I think where I now live, and I lived in Sydney for a couple of years, spent some time over the last year going back and forth to North America, but now kind of based back in southeast England, so quite close to Oxford, about an hour north of London, but in a village where we're fortunate to have kind of fields and woodland on our doorstep. So yeah, most days you'll see me out walking the dog. I've got a little rescue dog called Pudding, and I say walking. I'll start walking, and then she'll dart after a rabbit or something. And usually there's an unplanned sprint at various different points. So it's more interval training, let's call it. I play football. Fortunately, I bumped into someone local here, and we just moved to this new village, a new house, and you're kind of looking to meet people straight away and get involved with stuff. So I bumped into, again, it was on a dog walk, someone who invited us along to play five-a-side football for the local team each Thursday. Play golf, and then at least on the dog walking side, try to make that into a planned run, at least 2 or 3 times a week. But sometimes that ends up more 1 or 2 times, with finding that balance. But it's I think having lived and breathed the whole sport physical activity thing for really my whole life, it's not just kind of the work side. I kind of get the craving to get out there and do stuff, and that kind of almost underpins the whole mental and feeling well about yourself and valuing kind of your life. And I think being able to strike that balance between understanding where the stresses are, making sure you get a balance between family, friends, and your own health. And I feel incredibly privileged, I think, to have kind of had that background and that lifestyle and coming into this. And yeah, I think that just builds resilience, and I think that's been really important, particularly over the last few years, getting a new business going and working in different places. There's stresses at all time of the day, and having that support network and feeling connected and having your own community or communities in different types of places just helps kind of get through all of those harder times, I guess.
Yeah, and with your work, you're obviously, you're connecting with people across the world, different time zones. How do you manage that in terms of your well-being?
It's trying to, I guess, trying to find some kind of rhythm. And Sydney, Australia wakes up at, oh, God knows what time. It's probably about 10 p.m. my time at the moment. Kind of really online at 11, 12 p.m. So a couple of times a week I might be on calls there. North America comes on at about 3 p.m. and goes through into the evening. So I've been really helped by finding just really strong leaders in these companies, in these countries as well. So it's needed a bit of input kind of early on, but now it's less intense. I'm kind of back focused a bit more on the UK and bringing ActiveXchange into Europe. So it's a little bit easier, but it's staying disciplined with the exercise and trying to find that pattern, that rhythm.
Yeah, and it seems like balance is important for you, and getting outside and taking your dog for a walk and stuff. So yeah, great. And you touched on that, sport has been a big part of your life. But yeah, tell us a bit about your story, Alex.
My story, right? Well, I guess it started going to quite a sporty school. Went on to study. It was sports science with management at Loughborough Uni. So if you know, kind of England, Loughborough is kind of
Well, I just want to add there, Loughborough's the top university for sport, which I unfortunately didn't get into.
Well, you might have had it even better because I went there. I was playing kind of county, which is like regional football, cricket. So I was running for the south of England at the time. Thought, wow, this will be awesome. I'll go to Loughborough. It's a whole different kettle of fish. You go there, and I was struggling to make the fourth team, and it was still great. Still met a lot of great people, but that kind of shifted my focus a bit towards the business side more. And
Mhm.
but yeah, that's a tough couple of weeks when it gives you a new perspective on what high performance looks like. But yeah, went through Loughborough. There's a bit of traveling kind of just after that. I think that was that was brilliant. I think just getting out there and meeting new people, and that gives you a whole new level of confidence around being able to drop into new environments and find people to work with and collaborate with. But then, yeah, joined what was at the time the largest kind of sport and leisure planning consultancy in London. And so I would, work on facility strategies, business plans, open space strategies, playing pitch strategies across the UK for the best part of 4 years. And as you mentioned at the outset, I was the data geek in the back of the office a lot of the time, trying to create that supply and demand model using pretty basic data sets. We'd have, similar to Osplay over there, you'd have kind of participation survey, which would be, a relatively small sample of people. You'd have some Google map searching, and you'd have some demographics here, and you're trying to bring it all together to work out, should we build a $50 million swimming pool or not? And it felt maybe inadequate when you look at our friends working in other industries that would be using data a lot more effectively and be investing in the right types of data to bring forwards and have the right data expertise to turn that into something more convincing, I guess, that brings more stakeholders along for the journey. And that's what I wanted to do. And didn't feel fortunate at the time, but that company went bust in the downturn in kind of 2009-10. And that was pretty horrific at the time. You'd kind of be there, and you hadn't been paid for a couple of months. It would be like, grab a pen and paper, and that's kind of what you're left with, and was off. And you get a bit of government support money, and I got about £1,000 for not being paid for 2 months, and there's that support money. And I decided I had an opportunity to put that into some mapping software. And I thought, right, I can build out some models, build out some of this and do it a little bit better, and work with all those senior people that just left the company as well. I was 24, 25 at the time. And I had a friend who also built crematorium, and needed similar analysis about not who's going to be active, but who's going to die next. And that was our first job. We got going on doing some analysis for a golf course, doing some stuff on a crematorium. I had a lady called Sheila working with me part-time using the software I'd kind of just invested in, and we got going, and that became a company called Leisure Markets, which we subsequently merged into with 4Global, which is a data company in the UK, which works a lot with the leisure sector. And that kind of led into growing the data services there, and that got us to 2018. I felt I'd kind of taken that company or that part of the company as far as I could, and the opportunity arose to go to Australia, and thought, could we do this, maybe take it on a couple of steps, do it slightly differently, and make it fit the Australian market, then New Zealand and Canada and around to the US and so on. So yeah, that's what we've been doing, really focusing on the data science side, and focusing not just on creating insights around sport and leisure and feeding kind of things like social value and social impact back to government, but how can you create the effective movement of that insight? So you're not just creating a model and it appears in one dashboard, but you're probably collaborating, working with a whole range of different stakeholders and organizations that you want to take on your particular journey. So how can connected platforms, connected accounts enable that? And that's brought us kind of pretty much full circle. So now back in the UK, we're doing some pretty exciting stuff around movement data. So we're continually investing in new insights that benefit the whole network. And yeah, just trying to connect up more organizations, and with that, I suppose, ultimately influence the active and healthy lives of more communities that these partner organizations operate around.
Wow, I think there's a book in this at some point, isn't there? It's still early days,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think doing some pioneering work, and it's really exciting around your movement data, which I think we're gonna talk about soon. But I've heard you speak at a few conferences, Alex, and I really wanted to ask, how's your gran?
Yeah, that's probably the question. Particularly when I was over in Australia, I got asked the most in different settings, and you can throw up the latest insights and have some really cool models and maps. Everyone says, that was your nan on the board. We remember that. I think the first time was the National Sports Convention in 2018. Sorry, yeah, she's great. She's quite a bit older now and in a care home. And yeah, her health actually dipped a little bit a few weeks ago, and we got the call from. So we actually call her kind of Queen Burrows in the family. She's called Little Nan, but she's like the head of the family, as a lot of kind of grandmas, nans are. And we got the call as a family. The health's not looking great. Go and see your nan and stuff. We got around there, and the next thing we know, we see her downstairs doing exercise in the care home with the weights and all the movements and stuff, and feeling right as rain. So yeah, it just shows the power of all of that. But that story and what I was talking about on the stage in Australia a few years ago, where yeah, my nan at the time was living in Wales, and yeah, my granddad passed away in this maybe 8-10 years ago, and she was playing golf every day, but dropped out. But she was only 200 meters from a sports center, but she was in her mid-80s, and that sports center didn't know what to offer 80-year-olds, or how to communicate with them, or how to then keep them active and keep them retained in the facility. But there are 80-year-olds getting active and so on in other parts of the country, and programs and initiatives working really well. So how can we lift the data out of there and move it across here and show it's really relevant to your community and your facility? Because it's not just one nan, there's 200 nans on the street, 2,000 nans in that town. And the same with, my nan at the time was going to the local doctor. It's now slightly different in a care home, but that doctor being able to confidently talk about exercise and what's relevant to different types of people. And people want to know what works well for other people like them. That's often a big picture, is, stepping into a leisure centre, my image is of people in their 20s and 30s lifting weights and stuff. That's what I've seen on everything. Give me an impression, give me a perception that changes that, or link me to something that's really relevant that other people like me are doing. And yeah, we do a lot of work around kind of segmentation and understanding tribes and how that relates to each new community. So yeah, let's play through it. It's just great to see my nan go orally, see my nan downstairs with the dumbbells at obviously 91, 92. Yeah, good going.
Oh, that's a really great story, and glad to hear that she's still, going pretty well. And I think that leads us nicely when you talk about some of the work that you do with ActiveXchange in terms of like where does ActiveXchange fit in the physical activity ecosystem?
It's a good question, and I've kind of thought about this, and I think ultimately it's building data confidence across a range of people that we work with. It's not organizations, there's people within these organizations. And to feel confident, we can employ data scientists, we can invest in different types of data sets that come together in this stirring pot and create insights. But unless we've got the people who feel confident working alongside us and around us to then implement that within their own contexts and take their stakeholders along with them, then it all falls a bit flat. And it can look very exciting at the start, and you can whiz around an interactive map and graphs pop up and stuff, but unless you can embed it into organizations and other ecosystems, what you're trying to create as this network doesn't really hang together. So it's something how was it, a couple of years ago I spoke to James Ellender on one of these calls, bringing in this ActiveXchange Academy, and it's something we're going to double down on in the coming months and years, and make it a bit more into a global academy as well, with shared kind of learnings and case studies, and it not all being a dashboard and data around a map, but that whole learning and development side, and building confidence there. So you're not just turning on a dashboard and going, look, our lines up, but being able to talk to what's behind that and why you're using that solution and what sits behind it, is really important.
Because there's a lot of data there, isn't there? I suppose, Alex, it's how we interpret it and use it and the capability and capacity, I suppose, of your clients or your partners to be it, because it's not easy for everybody, to kind of interpret data.
Definitely not. And you get that kind of, what is it, data analysis paralysis kind of thing where, and I think what we're doing more now, and the company set up in 2018, we really got going 2019, COVID hit 2020 through to 2020. So we've really only been kind of growing the company for a couple of years. And I think we started out by thinking, okay, we know what the industry wants, let's put it out there. We often got suggestions back, and that would go into certain features of what we provide for kind of leisure, recreation, sport, and government. But more and more now, we're asking the question why. So, okay, why do you want to see that feature? Why? What's the end point? I get it's nice to know, and maybe someone's asked that within your organization, but how does it really affect what you're trying to deliver? How's it going to take your stakeholders along the journey? And okay, we're drawing a line of sight between you're going to do this or change this, and this is the likely outcome and the likely impact, and we're able to see that. We've got market insights and predictive models kind of coming together. But how important is that? How are you going to? Because unless that's going to be something you're going to use, it doesn't have to be daily, but monthly, to really make change your end, then it's just going to become something, a dead feature within our product.
Yeah, and do you get challenged at all in terms of like the integrity of the data? How's that going?
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest challenges. It's making sure the data is as much as possible accurate and consistent. And we work in a space where organizations use lots of different systems. They configure those systems in different ways. One receptionist one day will enter a class program differently to the next day. One organization will collect ages and dates of birth or something, but the other won't. So how do you then marry all of that to create some central insights that benefit and are relevant to the network? And what we're doing more and more, and we've just kind of come into version 2 of the product, which supports this, is provide better transparency about the quality of data that you've put in, how it's been matched to these data standards, so how it feeds into this kind of, not just your dashboards around tracking the progress of different Group X programs, or the return on investment, or your retention rates, or venue engagement rates. you need visibility about how the data's been taken from here and lands up here, but giving you confidence, and it always keeps coming back to this confidence that what you're looking at is apples compared to apples within the industry, and that idea of standards. And it's something I suppose it had limited awareness a few years ago. It's something we're kind of really pushing at the moment. And I know there's kind of some work being done on a national level. I'm sure at some point that'll become something a bit more global as well, particularly as things like social value, social impact become more mainstream as well. And there's international associations coming around that. The idea of standards will become even more important. It's not going to go away. So
I suppose that like the regulation around it and standards, but I suppose it's a journey, isn't it, that we're all on, and
that's it. When you kind of make the shift from just using your day-to-day reporting to what I call, I suppose, business intelligence and market intelligence, there's kind of you make that decision as an organization, and you kind of want it turned on yesterday, or you want to see, show me where my growth areas are and who's likely to join next, or tell me the impact I'm making, because I'm a sport. I want that to feed out to all local governments in my area, so we can collaborate around future projects. You want that immediately, but there is a discipline in terms of making sure the way the data feeds in, and we can enhance the information, and that's something we provide. But the way that feeds in, it does produce accurate and credible outputs, and we need to be confident about that and disciplined about it. Otherwise, what we're producing isn't really adding value, and it's potentially pointing people in the wrong direction, which is definitely what we don't want to do.
Yeah, sure. And you've over the years you've developed different products, whether it's SportsEye or the National Infrastructure Database, and I keep saying data, so I think I've realised how long I've been in Australia when I'm speaking to somebody from England. But excitingly, Alex, you've just launched the Global Movement Data Initiative, I think, with a partnership with Mapbox. So tell us a little bit about that.
I suppose it's something I've been looking for the last couple of years, and it goes to also having mates that work in different industries who are working in retail and banking and other services who use this kind of stuff, and their organizations or their networks invest in it to open it up. But it's the common question. You kind of in every country I've worked in, you say, okay, well, you pull registered member data together. That tells us one part of the picture, but what about all the other casuals, or the people who just turn up midweek for a kick around on the football pitch soccer pitch that we're not aware of? We're missing and off the back of that, do we really have a good idea about where communities come together and what infrastructure is being used within different communities? We keep building the playgrounds, we keep building the basketball courts, the tennis courts, and so on, but what's used? And it was a balance between, in terms of striking the right time and the right partnership. There's a whole thing around privacy compliance. You can't take kind of first party data and just provide that straight off the bat. But also having the technology where it's localized as well. So Mapbox provide the kind of base level mapping and location services in about 45,000 apps that are used around the world. So if you've got, I don't know, Skyscanner, hotels.com, you've got the Weather Channel, chances are if you've got a smartphone, you're sharing some kind of location information. And that comes to us aggregated or anonymized as a kind of an index between 0 and 1, but across a 100 by 100 meter grid across the whole country. So by operating the National Infrastructure Database, and over the last few years had lots of input from, as I say, sports consultants, local authorities. In Australia, we run the one in Canada now. We're linked into the New Zealand one. We're able to match that facility information with those movement grids. So that gives us, it doesn't always align exactly, but it gives us a really good indication on, as I said, what types of facilities work at different times, and just purely as a local government, what's working and what's not. 90% of my infrastructure, particularly around kind of physical activity, I've got no idea how busy that is. It's not cost effective to stand out there with a clipboard every day, or necessarily put counters on gates or things like that. And in some circumstances, you'll never have counters on gates when you talk about parks and spaces. So this gives that indication, and we can break it down by the hour, by the day, and by the month. So yeah, we've just been doing a load of analysis on synthetic turf pitches in Australia, and coming back to that data confidence side of things, doing our checks around known usage at different times, because we've got registered data coming in on when teams play and clubs and train and so on, matching that to the movement data to kind of, and we'll continue to do that in different environments to have confidence around it. But it then just from the strategic planning side of things, knowing, okay, well, within this demographic context, with this environment, this type of facility works. And we can see that's popular because we've got 20 other case studies, or this gives you a whole national perspective. Through to knowing when to maintain things, or having a kind of like an early warning system. Maybe you've got an issue because we've seen usage of this particular facility or area that's dropped 30% in the last week or month. Is it because the floodlighting's out? Is it because the gates never open so people can't get in and use it, or there's litter or graffiti, or people don't feel safe? At the moment, we have very little understanding of that, particularly with resources kind of being more and more kind of constrained at local government. You need to be more effective with how you allocate those. So we're still discovering the number of avenues this opens up. As I said, it looks cool when you see it on the map, and you kind of got all these dots across the.
Yeah, I was just about to say how, like, pictured in my mind, is it like it is a map, and then there'd be different colours for the movement of people. Is that?
Yeah, that's how it starts. So yeah, imagine across Sydney, 100 by 100 meter grid across the whole city, all joined up. The ability, if you have kind of drag filters, to look at different days, different times, different months, and then being able to select different types of facilities, and then to feed into a dashboard to say, okay, how busy are my basketball courts or my tennis courts or my parks? How does that compare to the rest of New South Wales or Greater Sydney? How does it compare to Australia? Where have I got potential issues? What's working really well? Okay, well, this tennis court is constantly busy. It's in the top 10% in the area. Okay, well, what setting is it in? What's the demographic profile of that area? What are the features of that facility? Is it because it's been resurfaced in the last couple of years that the nets aren't sagging in the middle, that I've got a decent way of booking and knowing that I can turn up and actually use it? What are the things? And this is what we'll be. It's exactly where we're at moving into at the moment, is discovering those things as well on behalf of working with organisations to discover those kind of attributes, to then think, okay, what's effective in this next setting. On the, I suppose, the other side of things, on the monitoring of grants and where investment's gone, just having that bird's eye view of knowing what difference has it made. Because again, hundreds of millions of dollars in each country goes into infrastructure, but do we know whether it's working or not?
It's a really interesting one when you think about how localized you're going to be able to evaluate, and we build these facilities and we hope that people will come, but as you know, it depends on the demographics, certain populations, and I suppose each community is a little bit different, so it might need different types of facilities to engage them. But it's going to be interesting because obviously the insight that you're going to find from this, maybe not everybody's going to want to hear it.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I suppose we've faced that for the last few years. When you start, you turn on a dashboard and someone's, facility you thought might have been doing quite well is down in one of the bottom quartiles. But at least then you've got a list of solutions that have been proven in other places that we're pretty confident will address and kind of move you up that ranking, rather than just kind of having the blinkers on and continuing down the same path. But I think there's definitely a need for, where in the last few years we have focused around benchmarks and at that kind of industry level, and we've tried to kind of localize those to a certain extent. And in the latest version of the product, we have like family group benchmarks and comparisons, so it's not, you're not comparing yourself always with the industry, because we know all facilities aren't the same. But yeah, industry benchmarks, industry insights is useful, and it is that solution. But there's, I think, a growing shift to real local intelligence alongside that as well. And if you're, let's say, running a leisure centre and you might be using some of our products already. Okay, well, I'm quiet through Monday afternoons. Where are my community at the moment? Are they like being competitive facilities? Are they out? If you look at was it Moore Park in the middle of Sydney, and you see kind of where people are gathering, it was really cool. You see where people are gathering at different times of the day. Okay, does that inform where I put my marketing, or where I drop my my Group X instructor in, who's maybe not doing anything in the gym now? He's got a couple of hours. Wow, wouldn't it be great to engage that community? And the more and more we move towards recognizing the value of getting people active who maybe haven't been active before, and where there's those significant barriers, a lot of the time to do with cost and familiarity and proximity to an activity, the more we'll be looking to drop things on doorsteps and get out, reach people where they are. And if you can do that, you can then start to evidence the impact. And I think I'm pretty sure this will lead over the coming kind of years to a new way of funding physical activity and preventative health, coupled with things like exercise referral. Knowing where people are, pushing things out, and knowing where people are, where to meet them, rather than just publishing things and expecting people to pull opportunities down for themselves, to go out and search and pull it into their, because that's, it engages 20% of people on the leisure and fitness side, and maybe another 20-30% on kind of registered sport. But we've tried this for a long time, publish stuff on search engines and on websites and book yourself in. It will only ever get to that point. We need to find better, more effective ways of reaching communities where they already come together. And this will lead us down that route, and hopefully help a lot of our partners.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think you're right. That 20% unfortunately is what we're kind of hitting. And we say we're all about equity as an industry, and but I think there's a lot more we can be doing, and go into where people are at, because it's about movement, isn't it? It's not just about sports. It's just about non-traditional kind of activities as well. So hopefully this will shine a light on some of what that is. And in terms of chronic disease, you've lived in Australia, you're back in England now. It's very similar, really, isn't it, in terms of 1 and 2 who've got a chronic disease. And but if you could nudge one part of the system to improve the work, the health and well-being of communities, what would that be? And you're not allowed to say data. I'm only joking.
I think it's probably looking at this next phase for ActiveXchange. It's thinking about it's not data. It's the movement of insights and providing an interface to health and to social services, of kind of really evidencing in that kind of consistent, accurate, credible way the impact that it's making, and starting to see the dollar value come back into the pockets of who's doing really effective stuff with people who wouldn't be active otherwise. But you need information to prove that and to build confidence around it. So it's about connecting organizations, communities in that kind of way. It's the movement of insight, and recognizing that's slightly different in different countries. There's working in the US, there's much more of a focus around the commercial side, but particularly in the UK, Canada, Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, it's health is getting closer to what we're doing, but there's still a gap that needs bridging in terms of an actual dollar value flowing consistently into the places that it's needed, where organizations are having the biggest impact. We're starting to get there. We saw there's a contract down in Melbourne, where they're starting to put just outside Melbourne, Victoria, where they're starting to put kind of social value into the contract with the operator. So social value is pretty widely used in Australia, where we take the data. It's a model with KPMG, and we look at the risks to different types of people that are coming through your facility, and how their activity, their kind of frequency and consistency of activity and type of activity reduces that risk. And then you can put a dollar value against a lot of these kind of chronic outcomes. And that's, at the moment, that's brilliant to see it go into contracts where local government is centrally funding that contract, and it's creating that, but broader. then getting it really kind of a step or a couple of steps further onto the direct health side of things as well. But recognizing not everything can be delivered out of a leisure centre. And this is why, as part of our strategy, having the movement data and assisting and telling that story about why we should get funded, because we're effective at delivering this program in these types of communities. This is where they come together, and we can provide consistent insight around the ongoing impact we create.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the hybrid model, isn't it? Where your facilities are fantastic, and I think that's one of the things that COVID taught us, didn't it? In terms of people just getting out there and trying to be and being active, really. So we've talked a bit about what the future, what you're looking at with movement data, etc., Alex. But I think you're in 3 continents now. We touched on that before: Europe, Australasia, and North America. You've had tremendous growth over the last period. But what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for you?
Tricky one. I think it's we don't need too many more products. We don't need to. I think it's to bring value into a network. It's to continually grow networks in each of these regions, and as I say, each country is different. You can't. Some parts that everyone should have a decent infrastructure database. Sport insights should be shared across local authorities, local government to help better planning. There's certain principles that just play out in each country, but I think it's how can we really enhance the value of and kind of the relevance of the insight we're creating across these networks. So the network grows rather than necessarily being more and more products or necessarily even more countries. It's about doubling down on those networks. Now that might be making sure we've got kind of all the sports involved, or we've got kind of local authorities keep bringing their leisure facilities to kind of link in and report impact and value. But I think it's also investing centrally in things like the movement data, where you wouldn't, and the capabilities to turn that into relevant insight, because you wouldn't. It's unrealistic to expect a single organisation to make that investment. Sometimes even an industry association, it's not, and then to have the team to continually refine that, work alongside partners to deliver value out of it. So I think we've got to, in a couple of countries now, got to that kind of network, that size of network where we can make those investments and bring that value in. Otherwise, you're going to find the industry, just from a digital transformation perspective, just lags behind others. And yeah, we want to break into other industries. We want to take a sport and physical activity out of the silo that it exists in and kind of align it with other sectors and where particularly funding and commissioning decisions are. But unless we're
what would be some of those industries? Is it health or?
I think it's health. I think there's I still think that when you sell a leisure membership, often that person buying that leisure membership isn't just buying it to lift weights in a gym. At the moment, at that point of purchasing, they want to shape a more active and healthy lifestyle for themselves. Yet we're selling a membership which is to lift weights in a gym. I'm probably thinking, how does this affect my health insurance? How does this link to the healthy food and drink and shopping that I'm doing? At what point are we? And yes, I might be doing some exercise in a facility, but I'm probably thinking about doing the City to Surf run in a few months' time, or I'm probably thinking about. It's rare that my physical activity will stop there, but the membership stops there, and a lot of relevant information that's being created either that just stops there as well. And whether that creates more funding for organizations, whether there's more commercial opportunities for organizations, so they're investing in their facilities and their organization development, that's a frustration that I think we're going to start to be able to lift the lid on a little bit over the coming months. So it's exciting. It's about joining up communities. You have community around sport and sport data and leisure, and to a certain extent local government, but there's lots of other kind of adjacent communities that have data that can do better, can want to link into people that are coming through these doors and going and doing things in parks, but at the moment we're all siloed.
Yeah, you're very much looking at it from a systems perspective, joining the dots and bringing all the different layers and intersection points, I suppose, together, which it's changing, isn't it? It's an adaptive system. But in terms of where, and this is the last question, Alex, where you see yourself personally in the system, how do you contribute and influence it?
Yeah, well, I'd say I guess I could talk about myself, but I think it's working alongside the kind of leaders we've got in each country as well. But I said at the start, kind of it's around building data confidence, and it's about breaking down silos and helping people really get the most out of data. And it all comes down to better connecting with customers, with residents, with stakeholders. With communities in general. And I come back to that kind of very first point around, well-being and feeling connected within types of communities within your own life.
Mm.
It's to some extent it's along those lines. It's just got a data strand to it, an insight strand, but it's so the industry feels more of a network, but more of a network alongside other industries, other sectors as well. Otherwise, we're not fulfilling our potential. We're operating in a way that we're just trying to meet the needs of the people we've always met and to
Mm.
deliver things that we've always been commissioned to deliver, and not kind of just break out of those silos. And it's a journey, and sometimes there's some days where you think you're going backwards a little bit. But we've got a purpose here and pretty determined to make this difference. And there's a number of case studies, a number of things that work really well that just kind of get you out of bed and keep you kind of moving forwards. So it's exciting, and I think thank God COVID's over now, and we can
Yeah.
really push on in this space. And it's exciting.
Yeah, well, congratulations for everything that you've achieved over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think I listened to one podcast, and I think you set up Canada from your bedroom, or at least you did a lot of that during that period. But I think there's a step change for sure, and data. I think people say it's the new oil. It's obviously very important now in terms of making more informed decisions. So yeah, it's pretty inspiring to watch how how you've gone about things, Alex, over the last few years, and particularly being here in Australia and setting it up with a team here, and then going back to the UK. So exciting times, and I'm really interested in the movement data, and particularly for trying to reduce physical inactivity, in some of the areas that I'm working in. So thank you for giving me your time today. And
Thanks, Dan.
yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, no, just congratulations to you as well, starting a collective leisure, and where that's kind of gone. And I've seen various posts and things, and it's absolutely what's needed. And I suppose it's our job just to provide the kind of relevant insights at the right time in the right place to support organizations exactly like that, because that's what in all the countries we work with, it's those types of organizations that we need more of, and to help them reach further. Just we can't carry on with more of the same, because I've seen that the last 15 years.
Absolutely. And so what does the rest of the day look like for you? Are you going out for a walk now with your dog?
Well, I've had calls since 6:30 this morning with Oz. So yeah, the dog's going absolutely spare around the corner here. So
It's been very quiet.
yeah, I'm surprised there can't have been too many dogs out in the street, because she feels like she owns the street now. We've only been in the house a few months, but out for an hour or so, and then I've got to catch up. We've got our CFO works quite closely, so again, it's just great being out and seeing some of the team sometimes. And then I've got some calls. There's a couple of councils in the UK that are kind of just looking at getting going with movement data. And then a couple of calls with Canada when they come on. We've got some exciting projects just going live on the new platform, some of the big sports, some of the big cities getting going out there. So it's normal day, but I love it all. I'm still at heart that data geek who, when you see something cool, you see the light bulb go off with someone, and you think, God, data do this, or this data was available, and it's going to help me influence this person or make that decision. I still absolutely love it, and I won't change it for the world. So yeah, should be a good day.
You can't fake passion. Yeah. Well, all the best, Alex, for the rest of the year, and yeah, hope to catch up with you soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, David. Take care.
See you, Alex. Bye.
Bye.